So hello, this is another studio vlog where I say we, but it's literally just me, so I don't know who we is. Maybe all like the friends I have on my desk. And this new friend, I'm gonna show him because I feel like it. I call him Big Nini, but I'm really into this character series from Line called Minini, and it's basically like Line characters, but they're like tiny. And I have like the normal sized dolls, but look, he's so cute and giant. Okay, anyways, so I'm working on the winter shop update, and I don't know how things are going. They're like kind of all over the place right now. I do have this box of work in progress pieces. There are earrings in here and keycaps. The earrings were not part of the plan. I feel like every update I have like one product item that I end up making that's not really part of my plan. Like it wasn't in my sketches or even like on my list. I'm still not the most organized when it comes to shop updates. Like I'm trying to be more organized. Like I will make a sheet with all the sketches of all the ideas I have, and then I'll go into Notion and make kind of like a running to-do list of all the things I need to get done for the shop update, and then also have some inspiration pictures, but that's like kind of the extent of my organization. Last night I tried 3D printing some of the cutters that I was going to use for the shop update, but half of them didn't print properly, so I don't even know if I can work on those specific items today. But for now, I'm gonna be working on the keycaps I have designed for the shop update, and maybe also the earrings. So I put up a poll on YouTube, and it turns out the majority of you prefer a voiceover or a voiceover and caption kind of combination, so I thought that would be what we do for this video, since I didn't do a very good job of explaining what I'm doing throughout this vlog. So here I am working on a new keycap design, and it is a cookie tin design. I had already covered the keycaps and baked them off camera once, and here I am just attaching the sidewalls using some liquid Sculpting. And this process of making these sidewalls and just this keycap in general, or like the tin, took a very long time. This will be a general theme of all the crafts that I make for this update, is that they all took a really long time, or they took a lot longer than I thought they would. So here I'm just demolding some molds that I made for cookies that will go inside the keycaps, and I just made molds so it would make the process easier. After I baked the sidewalls on, I went ahead and sanded all of the edges down so they'd be smoother, but this is when I discovered that I didn't do a super great job of smoothing down the sides when I was sculpting them. I thought, oh, I can just make them a little bit rough and then I can sand them down and it'll be a-okay. But no, like the surface ended up being really rough and there were a bunch of holes. So I had to go back and fill in a bunch of holes with more clay and bake it again and then sand it again. And then I think I did that process like maybe 2 or 3 times. So between covering the keycap with the base layer and putting in the cookies, I probably baked these about 5 or 6 times maybe. Like they went in and out of the oven a lot, but sometimes that is just what you have to do to get the result that you want. Especially for the first time you make something, there are a lot of little things that you have to figure out. And it was my first time making a keycap of this shape, so there was a lot I had to figure out. And I ended up having to reprint some of the cookie cutters. I realized that the cookie cutters with the inside cutter for the Linzer cookies didn't actually print the inside cutter part, and that was because I had accidentally modeled them too thin and the 3D printing program didn't even register them at all. So that ended up also taking a long time, since the original batch of cutters took about 8 to 9 hours to print, and this second batch took 4 hours? I think it took 4 hours. But while those were printing, I went ahead and worked on the cookies that would go inside the cookie tins. It was really fun putting these little cookie tins together. I think assembly is my favorite part of the sculpting process. I think it's just really exciting to see things come together and look more like the finished product. I feel like sometimes early on in the process when things don't go well, it's really easy to get frustrated because you're so far away from being finished. But when you're near the finish line, it's like you're really seeing your vision come to life, and it's just really exciting and fun. After the cutters finished printing, I pulled them off the 3D printer. Thank you, Mr. 3D Printer, for working so hard this shop update. There were actually more that I wanted to make but didn't get around to doing so. And while I was working on sculpts this time around, I discovered the beauty of baby powder for polymer clay. Baby powder just helps the clay not stick to things as much, which is really helpful when you're rolling out your clay so it doesn't stick to your surface or whatever you're using to roll it as much. And it's also really, really useful when you're using cookie cutters, because what happens a lot of the time is that when you're trying to cut something out, you push down on the cookie cutter into the clay, and then the piece that you want gets stuck inside the cutter, and then when you try to take it out, either by poking it out or prying it out, it damages the piece that you want, which isn't fun or nice. So the baby powder kind of just helps with preventing stickage, and it's really useful. And honestly, a game changer. So if you haven't tried using baby powder to prevent sticking with polymer clay, definitely give it a shot. It was really fun to see all the 3D models that I had so painstakingly printed out, stamped out onto a piece of clay, and it kind of looked like real cookies and I was baking in real life. But we're gonna once again revisit the theme of things taking a lot longer than I thought they would. I thought since I had put in all the work into modeling and printing these cutters, I could just stamp out the designs and they would be ready to go, but it turns out that wasn't the case. When it comes to using cutters on polymer clay, a lot of the times it leaves like little rough bits on the edges, so I had to go in and manually clean them up one by one, and this wasn't really something that I had anticipated doing. It is a bit of a time-consuming process, but I really think it's worth it for a prettier end result, and I just ended up watching some TV in the background while I did it, so it wasn't that bad in the end. And here you'll see me do a big boo-boo, which is shading my pieces before I inserted the pins. Looking back, I really should have inserted the pins before shading, because after inserting like the eye pins or head pins, there is a lot of cleanup that you have to do afterwards, and cleaning up with rubbing alcohol tends to remove whatever shading you have done, so I just wasted all my time right here. With these Linzer cookies, I wanted the shading to be pretty light because when you bake Linzer cookies, you don't want them too dark. So I just went in with a brush and this light tan and just kind of lightly dusted the edges of each cookie. And then to insert the pins, I actually went ahead and inserted a sewing pin first. This is kind of borrowing an idea from woodworking, which is drilling pilot holes, which is where you drill a hole first with a smaller bit to make a smaller hole, so that way when you go in with your bigger and final screw, it will go in straight and neat. So that is a little trick for y'all. While I was working on these, I was actually watching Culinary Class Wars. I know I am kind of behind on the trend of watching Culinary Class Wars, but it was really fun to watch in the background. I don't normally watch reality TV, but I actually had a lot of fun watching this one. I think most of them feel very edited to me. I guess this one wasn't that different, but I really enjoy watching like cooking YouTube and those videos where they follow a chef around their day and kind of just watch how they run service. I think it's really cool to watch someone who's really invested in their career and to see creativity manifest in kind of a different way. No spoilers, but in some of the later episodes, there are some dishes that made me just really impressed with how creative the chef got. I was actually having a lot of fun while making these miniature Linzer cookies. It is a little sad, but it isn't a very frequent occurrence to me to actively feel like I'm having fun while I'm crafting. I think I do tend to have more fun when I'm creating new products, even though it is also sometimes more frustrating and difficult than recreating old products. but I was just having a lot of fun imagining how they would look with jam inside, and it really felt like the holiday season was finally approaching. So if you find yourself enjoying your process, really hold on to that, especially if it doesn't come often. So this time I actually filmed myself doing resin work. I normally don't film while resining, mostly because it is already stressful enough without having to worry about filming. But since I was only adding resin details and not doing entire glazes, I thought it would be a good time to show. And I haven't really shown my resin process before. So I mixed some red pigment into the resin to add little bits of jam into the thumbprint cookies. I did this for both the cookie tin keycaps, but also these individual ones that I will hopefully use in a shaker in the future, but we are still experimenting with that. I also kind of wanted to show how much work can go into a little detail such as the jam in this thumbprint cookie. I think this little detail really makes the keycap shine and it was worth the extra effort. I used the same resin mixture for the Linzer cookies and put a little dollop on it before putting on the top cookie and curing it. It was a little difficult to get the top cookie to match up with the bottom cookie and trying to figure out how much to squish down the top cookie so that the resin would come up into the cutout without it overflowing off the sides, but I think the end result came out quite cute. I also added resin to the top of these little pudding charms that I made that I didn't show myself sculpting, but I will show kind of what I'm going for near the end. Okay, so yesterday I resined a bunch of my items that I was making throughout this video. So first we have these cookie tin keycaps. I feel like it's been a while since I released keycaps, and I think these came out pretty cute. I have a bunch of these really miniature cookies. I just put it on this popsicle stick with double-sided tape to make it easier to work with. Hopefully, if things go well, they are going to be put into these as little shakers. And then I have these little puddings. They didn't quite turn out the way I wanted them to. They're not quite as cute as I thought they would be. So I don't know if I'm gonna remake these once they sell out, but this was my, I don't want to say vanity project, but I think once every update I have 1 or 2 items. I kind of made it because I felt like it, and like they weren't really on my list of items to make for the shop update. So there's that, and then we have all the little Linzer cookies that I made. Let me show you the different designs I have. So we have a little star, and then a tree, have a little heart. So these will be made into bookmarks, and then I have a couple extra heart ones that I will be turning into earrings. So I can't really decide if I like it with the hearts or not, so I'm gonna put a poll up. And while we wait for those results, I'm gonna work on the bookmarks for now. Okay, so I finished assembling all the bookmarks, and then I did one of the earring because I think the 2.25 loop is a little bit too big for my stuff, so I did get a new one, so I think I'll finish assembling the earrings when it gets here, and hopefully that makes things a little bit easier on my wrist. I did notice that when I was preparing for the markets and stuff, I was having a lot of wrist pain, and I was very confused because I wasn't drawing, and I was like, why am I experiencing wrist pain? But I think it's from assembling things, so we'll see if that helps. This is where I'll end the vlog. So yeah. Winter shop update sometime. Hopefully soon.